There's a sickness here that threatens to divide us, and we're all afraid to say its name out loud. Lord, I know that you can.
So we're back with Alex. And Alex, so we've been speaking to you. You just kind of moved from Arizona at 13 years old. Your parents saw your passion for music, brought you to LA. And here we are, the gospel at the gospel at 23. First of all, genius album title. I've been listening to it on repeat all this week. Giving me very Donny Hathaway, Fred Hammond, Kirk Franklin, like even kind of Pharrell vibes. It's a vibe. So I can't wait for your audience and for people to hear it, because I also think that with everything that everyone's been dealing with, it's incredibly personal. And as someone who loves music, the musicians that I connect with the most are the people who really kind of open their hearts to their audience, and the whole album just feels so raw and so vulnerable. So my first question is, gospel stands for good news, or it means good news. And the first song on the album is Good News. Talk us through how you came to that point of realizing in a point where we as a world are in such a dark space, how you were able to lift into this light with good news and with this album, The Gospel at 23.
And naming it. And I think that's something that I consistently want to point out is, I think when it comes to people saying, oh, this is the gospel or this is this, it can get a little, some people might have those preconceived ideas that I'm trying to say, hey, this is how you should live your life. And so I guess when I put it like that, I wrote all of these songs, most of these songs, when I was 23 years old. And the songs are about, they're anecdotal pieces of my life so far in those 23 years, leading to where I stand as a human being, who I am as a human being, what I believe as a human being, i.e. my gospel, which is why I called the album The Gospel at 23. But now that you're bringing up this etymology of the word, and the first song, like you mentioned, is Good Morning, it's like, it's more of a, wow, things continue to connect in ways that I didn't even know. And even pressing that idea more, Good Morning I wrote last June. This was before there was, this is before there was a pandemic. This is before we shone such a great light on the wild inequality of races. This is before the battles and before politics and before, you know, all of the voting and all of the presidential campaigns. This was last year when I was just dealing with my own shit. And so Good Morning and the rest of these songs I wrote about my own life. Like the lyrics go, last night was shit. My phone was dark. The world's a mess. That's just the start. Like, I gotten in a fight with my girl, or I had been like, and like the world was just like not really hitting right at the time. And the world, like, I just felt like, ugh. And then I go, but I slept all right. So it must be good morning.
Right.
I get a phone call from my mom and my dad switching jobs. And I get a text from one of my exes, and she's saying that she's happy with this other dude. And I'm feeling like so sad, but at the same time, all of us are alive and we got to look at these blessings. So it's good morning. As we look at that now, and we're looking at those same lyrics. Last night was shit. I'm sure last night there were 25,000 new cases of coronavirus.
Right.
I'm sure that there were a lot of people whose phones are dark, whether that is not getting messages or whether that is the media that's coming to them is a dark piece of media.
Right.
The world's a mess. We don't gotta point out what that means. So it's cool how some of the lyrics, when it comes from your heart and when you write from your soul, lyrics can transcend story. Lyrics can transcend meaning for different people and for different times. And that's what I think really makes timeless music. And that was my biggest hope for this album to be.
Listening to the track, I was like, oh, so this is obviously Alex's response to this little period that we're in, but you wrote it a year ago. So, I mean, that to itself kind of speaks to the timelessness nature, I think, of just humanity itself. Which brings me to two lyrics that I kind of jotted down. One was, today is all we got, tomorrow might not come. And the second lyric was, the sun ain't going to stop if you ready or you not. So for me, that to me And I think I want to keep it very personal because, like you said, you didn't want to make it seem like you were being preachy or trying to tell people how they should live. But with those two lyrics, how were you able, or as a human, how was Alex able to lift himself from, to make himself realize that tomorrow is all that we have, or lift yourself from a dark moment and to kind of come into this space of gratitude? What was that process like for you? And what, for people who might be in a dark space now, what words would you give from your experience that might be of something of inspiration to them?
One of my really good friends had mentioned to me kind of the concept of stoicism. Like he had finished reading Marcus Aurelius's The Meditations. Mm-hmm. And stoicism is kind of the concept that's like, you can control what you can control and you can't what you can't. Therefore, you're not going to press yourself about the things you cannot control. One of the things you can control is how you take advantage of an opportunity that is in front of you. And I think every day that we wake up is an opportunity for us to take advantage of, to make what we can out of it. And so it's like, the sun's not going to stop. So if you're ready for it, if you're not ready for it, you got to get up. And again, I wrote this a year ago, and it's not preaching. I mean, it is preaching, but it's not preaching to anybody. This was me trying to tell myself every day, yo, it doesn't matter. Like, today is all that you really have. I've woken up days. I remember waking up November of 2016 one day, and somebody very, very close to me that I had they weren't in poor health or anything. I woke up and that person now is no longer with us. And that's the reality of the world. And so today really is all we got. And tomorrow it might not come. Like am I pretty sure that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be totally fine? Yeah, I'm totally, I would put money on the fact that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be totally fine and I have another opportunity at life. Mm-hmm. But there's no guarantees. And so I think those two lyrics specifically are me telling myself, hey, as much as you might be sad about what happened yesterday, or you might be nervous about what's happening tomorrow, the only guarantee that you have right now is today. And so what are you going to do today?
How do you get to that space of being so raw and vulnerable? I think that society kind of puts a lot of pressure on men to be hyper-masculine. So, how did you challenge tropes of masculinity to kind of get to this place where you could be emotional, where you could show your emotions, where you could be kind of come to this really raw space? How did you get there mentally?
I honestly give credit to the people in which I worked on this album with. I give such big credit to Jesse Singer, Chris mm-hmm. Soper, Jordan Dodd, Emma DD, Mike Campbell, Billy Mann, Bill Jolly, Charlie Wilson, Charlie Prince, Steve Wolf. Everybody that I worked on this album with created an environment that really, they held my hand. They created this environment, this safe space that was disarming and vulnerable, and really, like, everybody there held my hand. And any moment, like, there were some lyrics that I was too nervous to say, skeletons in my closet, they keep knocking, and some nights I want to join them. That's if you think about it, that's a dark line.
Yes.
Saying something like that, some nights I want to join them, and some days I just avoid them. I try and block them back. Things like that, where I remember writing that lyric and being like, I can't say this. Like, I can't say this because, like you mentioned, the world will then not think of me as a man, or the world will not think of me as strong. Mm-hmm, and there's mm-hmm. this social misconception of what strength is, of what a man is, of who a man is. And having a team around me that held my hand and goes, no, this is it. Like, that's it. And helped me write lyrics that were it. That's really where this vulnerability, and now I'm at a place, having written this whole album and having shown it to people and gone through those nervous, awkward phases of worrying about how people will view me after they hear these songs, and knowing that that's all just in my head, and everybody's fortunately being like, man, I love that you sang that. I love that you shared yourself. It's opened it up. So now I can write a song here in my room on my piano and be able to have that same vulnerability. So I give so much credit to my team for this Gospel at 23 record for helping me get there.
The choir. The choir. That is just the icing on the cake. What, did you always know you were going to use a choir? Why the choir?
when we started writing this vulnerable record, and some of the records had references to my belief system. Some of these records had references all the way back to being 16, all the way back to being a kid, you know. It kind of made us, you know, everybody, me, my team, Billy, Liz, Laura, everybody think to ourselves like, okay, we need to be, if we're gonna be me 100%, we gotta be me 100%. And if you know me, like, I will work out, I will drive, I will shower, I will clean my room listening to Fred Hammond. I'll clean my room listening to Kirk Franklin. I'll clean my room listening to so many, you know, so many different, Jonathan McReynolds, like so many amazing gospel artists. It's such a big factor in my life. And I feel that music connects with me more than anything. So when writing lyrics like this, we could have done synths and hit up all of the, you know, hip hop producers, R&B producers, incredible, you know, musicians and instrumentalists to come and make this a very current feeling record. But because we cared more about telling my story and doing it the way that is the most natural to me, we said, why don't we just keep it stripped down? There's so much in these lyrics. Let's go piano, kick drum, choir. That's it.
Right.
And it was really a challenge through the whole process. But I think because we kept it so simple and stripped down, there was no place else to go. And the choir enforces pieces of information even to a stronger degree. So if it's, you know, I got a happy ending in me, I got a happy ending in me, like, I want people to feel like they not only can, but have to sing that part. Right. And they have to it becomes a mantra almost, that you start thinking to yourself, not only do you have a happy ending in your life, not only do I have a happy ending in my life, my friends have happy endings in their lives, whoever listens to this album, by the end of it, when you're listening to Happy Ending, I want everybody to be singing that so that it enforces it in their own lives, that they too, regardless of the struggles, regardless of how far they have to crawl through hell, they are going to have a happy ending for themselves.
Talk to me about something that you said to me, which I loved, is you kept kind of mentioning this idea of art. Do you equate what you do as an art form?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think music on its own is an art form. I think songwriting is poetry with notes. I think that, you know, creating the chords in which there's so much art. I think it's tiny pieces of art, as if it's each one is one single brushstroke, and you zoom out and the album is the painting, like Justin Bua did of the actual painting, which is the album artwork. And so I think not only do I feel like, obviously I am an artist, that's what a recording artist, or, you know, a songwriter who writes songs for other recording artists or themselves as a recording artist. But also I think that there's so much, I think, like, glory that people think is in being the singer or being the songwriter or being the producer. But in reality, all of these things are just tiny brushstrokes that when you pull out and you see this full picture, you make it less about you and make it more about this grand picture that I am just so lucky to be a part of.
So if we zoom out, let's zoom out on the gospel at 23. What do we see? What do we see? What does that work of art look like? What are all the brushstrokes together? What does that look like?
One of the words I thought of is enlightenment, because for me, I learned so much to myself, but I don't think it's enlightenment in the sense that, like, I want to take the glory out of that word and take the look at me, I'm this great enlightener of information to people. I don't view it like that. I view this as an enlightenment for me. That's why in the painting Justin Bua did as the artwork for the album, my heart is glowing and the hearts around me are glowing because I feel enlightened by being able to, like you had mentioned, be vulnerable with myself enough to tell my story, in the hopes that if one person hears one lyric, one tiny brushstroke, like you had mentioned, and takes that one brushstroke as inspiration to be better or be happier or make a change in their life, then that is, to me, the goal of the whole record.
So you open up the album with this kind of upbeat, you know, good morning, and then you close out with Medicine, which was like, oh, it was heart-wrenching. It felt like an altar call, cry for help. You know what I mean? And so I wrote down some lyrics. You can save us from ourselves before our wounds hurt someone else. That really hit me. What are we doing with these lyrics?
I got to break this down. This one, lyrically, I take no credit. This is all D. Wilson, and I'm gonna throw his name out everywhere because he crafted a message that was so beautiful. This was never originally a part of the album. This is something. The album was done, it's been written, and we were planning on releasing it, and then COVID happened, and we were like, maybe we should wait a little bit longer. And then in the wake of George Floyd's murder, Breonna Taylor's murder, the uncovering of Elijah McClain's murder, and the uprising that was so necessary of the Black Lives Matter movement and us all fighting for racial equality and racial justice, we held the album back once again. And while we were holding it back, my dad, actually, shout outs to my dad, reposted an Instagram video of D. Wilson singing this song that he had written days before he posted that video.
Oh, wow.
And he'd written that around that same time that George Floyd was murdered. And I listened to this song and I cried and I felt it because I felt like you had mentioned, those lyrics, you can save us from ourselves before our wounds hurt somebody else. As an ally to the Black Lives Matter movement, as an ally to racial justice, and as an ally to equal rights in general, I heard that and I listened to it and I thought to myself that we do need help to save us from ourselves because there are innocent Black humans being murdered right now. And if enough happens, that cup is going to be filling and overflowing onto other things. That's the wounds hurting somebody else. There's going to be a time, and we're hitting that time now, where enough is enough. And that's, as I'm listening to this song, I'm hearing this message. And as I consistently try and find a way to amplify Black voices, support Black culture, Black business, and be a true ally, recognizing that the problems that I face will never be the problems that you as a Black man face, that D. Wilson as a Black man faces, that anybody who is Black, especially in America right now, are going to face. As an ally, I must do everything to shut my mouth and listen and look for ways to amplify that. And I found this song on Instagram and immediately messaged D and said, how can I help? And one of the things he had mentioned was like, will you sing it as a duet with me? Wow. And I responded, not only what do I want, like that was, it was insane that he asked me to sing it as a duet, because in my mind, I'm like, of course, no brainer. Mm-hmm. And not only that, then we ended up finding a way to put it on my album as this perfect final piece, because so far in the Gospel at 23, I'm writing about all of these changes I'm seeing in life, not even just changes inside of me, but changes around me. And this song was the perfect piece to add this 2020 version, this new world version of how I'm being changed based off of the surroundings around me and how I am viewing the world right now and how D is viewing the world right now. And so those lyrics, like you had mentioned, you can save us from ourselves before our wounds hurt somebody else. Our wounds are hurting other people right now.
Lord, I know that
we are protesting out in the streets. And unfortunately, in those protests, there are violent moments that none of us want, but the wounds and the voices aren't being heard. That's why there is a saying, no justice, no peace, because there will never be peace until we get that justice for Breonna Taylor, until the justice is fully served for George Floyd, for Elijah McClain. There are names that go all the way back, years and years and years, that justice needs to be fought for. And so those lyrics, our wounds hurt somebody else, that's happening, and we're still asking for help. We still need you now. And whether that you, when you listen to the song, is a higher power like God, or simply is love itself, we need it right now, because the way that we are trending is a terrible direction.
Before our wounds hurt someone else, we need